If it's way too fast for my current level of comprehension, would you recommend listening on 0.75 speed, or is it better to just grind through it? This is a good question, and the answer really depends on your preferences. Honestly, I recommend listening to it on normal speed from the beginning, but if it's too difficult, you can do both. You can first listen to it at zero point 0.5 speed, 0.75. 0.5 is going to sound very weird. 0.75 to make it easier, and then normal speed as well. I would combine both simply because if you get used to 0.75, native speakers will sound really, really fast in real life. And once you start making it easier for yourself with tricks like this, you get comfortable and you end up you keep delaying the switching to normal speed bit. Yeah, okay, maybe next week I'll switch to normal speed, and you keep listening to it in slow motion, which there's nothing wrong with it. It's just you just delay in results, right? So um, I would do it, but maybe combine both from the beginning, and as soon as possible move on to normal speed. And even once you know the vocabulary well, even to 1.25 or 1.5 speed, because then you're reviewing more sentences in the same amount of time, and you're training yourself to understand really fast speech, and that will make real life conversations easier because they'll be slower. That's my advice. But first of all, if your level of comprehension is not good, you need to find where your bottleneck is. What's the problem? Is it that you don't understand connected speech? You know the words, but you don't understand them when a native speaker says them fast and in a sentence. So you can't really. This is a common thing that you know the words, but when they're in a sentence, it all sounds like a long word because it's fast and it's like all clustered together, and you can't really distinguish individual words. This can happen. If that's the problem, you need to work specifically on that by listening to a normal speed instead of slowing it down. Yeah. But maybe the problem is that you don't have the vocab yet. If you don't have the vocab yet, no amount of slowing it down will make it easier because you don't know the words. If you don't know the vocab, you need to keep listening, obviously, but you need to learn more vocab, memorize more retrieval practice, and once you know the words and you know the example sentences through retrieval practice, listening will get easier and easier. And listening to it in normal speed and then faster speed will just become easier simply by knowing the words. If you know the words that you can't understand because it's fast and it's connected speech, you need to practice that specific skill of listening comprehension, like fast and difficult listening comprehension. If you only listen to easy stuff, and this is the problem with a lot of learn Spanish with Juan. Hoy vamos a hablar de blah blah blah. That kind of stuff will always keep you at a beginner or maximum intermediate level because it's not challenging you. It's easy. It's comfortable, but you not you are not you have no incentive to understand. You're not forcing yourself to understand something that's difficult. Yeah, listening comprehension should be you should be struggling to understand the whole time. If you're just listening to stuff that's easy to understand, you're not improving, and then you'll struggle the moment you listen to something difficult. So from day one, I recommend you combine first of all the 10,000 Spanish sentence list or whatever language you're listening to. Binge listen to those, but also listen to native speaker content. I recommend a mixture, 80-20 mix at first, then a 50-50 one, and then a 20-80 one. What do I mean by this? When you start learning from scratch and you're memorizing vocabulary en masse, and you're doing retrieval practice, 80% of your listening should be with the audio files of those words and sentences that you're learning. So you are constantly reviewing them and you're learning them really well. And then 20% of your listening time should be, and this is going to be difficult, native speaker podcasts, content by native speakers for native speakers. Yeah, that's why you're testing how much you understand in real life. Once your comprehension gets decent and you know a lot of vocab, you should switch to 50-50. Yeah, 50% reviewing those sentences by listening to them over and over, 50% of your listening time with native speaker podcasts. And once you think you're ready, 80% should be native speaker podcasts. Yeah, so you learn how people speak in real life. You focus on that, not only for comprehension but also for speaking. And still, 20% of your listening time should be devoted to reviewing by listening the mass sentences that you're learning in that specific moment. Maybe the 10,000 list, the final parts of it, or whatever list of advanced C1 sentences you're learning, or whatever you're doing, or your language islands. But you should always listen to both the audio from the mass sentences you're learning and native speaker podcasts from day one. So I recommend, long story short, I don't really recommend slowing anything down, because eventually you will have to switch to normal speed. So if it's too difficult, you probably need to learn more vocab. And if vocab is not the problem, it's the speed and the connected speech and the pronunciation, then precisely for that, you need to do targeted training to improve that. So you need to slowing it down and making it easier won't help. Just listen to it more times until you understand it. All right. Work. Always think of where the bottlenecks are. What's the weakest point? What's the weakest link of the chain? What's stopping me from understanding? What's stopping me from speaking? Yeah. What's the weakest part of your game? And if you know the words, you can recognize the words, you can translate them correctly even when doing retrieval practice. But then you don't understand them, then it's your pronunciation that needs to work. Yeah, your knowledge of the language's pronunciation. But it's different if you can't recall the words correctly. Then it's your vocab that needs work. And you need the same thing for your own speaking. Yeah, you need to find out where you're weakest and improve that the most. Obviously, you need to improve all areas simultaneously, but especially where you're the weakest.